Good afternoon and welcome to today's APM webinar, Project Manager Who Smiled with Peter Taylor. I'm Robert Allen, APM Branches Manager, and I'll be your host for today. It's great to see so many people online today, and I hope this finds you all well. Please be aware that this webinar is being recorded and you're on listen mode only. But that's not stopping you getting involved. On your control panel, there is a questions part. Please submit your questions and Peter will happily answer these at the end of the presentation. The session will count towards your CPD and should last for a maximum of an hour. And I would also like to say a special thanks not only to Peter for giving up his time, but also to the volunteers in the SIGs and the branches for all their efforts with producing these webinars. So over to Peter. So Peter is an experienced change and transformation specialist who has operated at a global scale within many industries for organisations ranging from small to enterprise. Peter is also the author of the #1 best-selling project management book, The Lazy Project Manager. So on that note, I'll hand over to Peter, and I hope everyone enjoys today's presentation.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. And hello, everybody. Welcome to this session. And so why am I doing this at this point in time? It was fascinating. So when all the problems that we were all facing came about, I kind of contemplated how I could do something, because suddenly, like many of us, I had suddenly a lot of time on my hands. I was no longer traveling. I was no longer going and visiting client sites. And my first thought was, oh, great. I've worked in a remote manner for many, many years. So let me do some stuff around virtual meetings and remote working, etc. But suddenly, I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. And suddenly there's LinkedIn was awash with people giving advice. I thought, well, okay, I don't need to repeat what everybody else has said and probably said better than me. So what else could I do? And then I remembered a book I wrote in 2013 called The Project Manager Who Smiled, The Value of Fun in Project Management. I thought this could be good, because actually right now we could really do with a bit of a smile and a laugh and some cheering up. And I said, well, okay, what I'll do is I'll put a post out on LinkedIn and I'll offer the book for free and see if people are interested or not. Well, I didn't really anticipate the response, because that LinkedIn post, last time I looked at it, had hit 34,000 views. And, I have given away a lot of books, and I'm delighted to do that. So I ran that for a period of time. And then I thought, well, all right, that seemed to go down really well. And, I'll be honest, I got lots of nice new connections on LinkedIn and people saying nice things about the book, and that was all wonderful. But then I thought, what else can I do? And I thought, well, right now, why don't I have a webinar, I have a presentation that's actually based around the book. I haven't given it for some time, so let me update that and offer it out to some organizations, which I have done. And I'm delighted to be here today as one of a number of organizations that I'm doing this presentation for. So my offer kind of remains really in that, I'm offering this out there to the community. If you're interested and like what you hear, I'm also doing it for companies as well. So if you have a company that you think, hey, this would be really good for to present to my own organization, then reach out to me. This is something I'm going to keep going during April, probably into May as well. And that's it. Then I'm going to have to go and do some real work after that. But this is how it all came about, and I've been delighted that the attendance levels and the response to these sessions have been amazing, and some great questions as well. So no pressure on you guys, because we do want some great questions at the end there. But my name is Peter Taylor. I am known as the Lazy Project Manager. And let's start. Why did the project manager cross the road? Well, to get to the critical path, of course. Grown. Yeah, there's going to be some terrible jokes during this session. And hopefully some slightly more inspiring humor or evidence of the value of humor. I am the Lazy Project Manager, as has been described. What am I? I'm an international speaker. Oh, that's great these days, isn't it? An international speaker. I'm actually supposed to be heading out to Seattle very shortly, but that isn't going to happen. I've been delighted to do a lot of traveling. I've traveled to 25 different countries. This is my, if you include presentations, including webinars, this is my 385th presentation in the last 10 years. And I'd love to do some more, some real soon, some real face-to-face ones as well in the future. But predominantly that's what I am. I am an author and I'm an international speaker. I'm also a consultant. I'm a coach. I'm a trainer. And a lot of that actually, interestingly, has been remote based for some time. So that's kind of been really good in the current situation, that, you know, most of the training and coaching services I offer can be done and have been proven to be effective in a remote environment. But you know, we do love to do stuff face to face as well. We hope it comes back very soon. I know in the UK we're waiting right now for the next announcement of lockdown, but you know, this will pass and we will get back to a degree of normality in the future, but certainly there's going to be more remote activity than ever before. You know, if anybody asks me, I'm a project manager, have been for years. I'm a PMO leader. Over the last 15 years, I've helped design, build, and lead some of the biggest PMOs in the world for multi-billion-dollar companies. So it's a wonderful, nice mix. But today, I'm not just a lazy project manager. Today, I'm hopefully going to be the lazy, funny project manager. And I'll leave that for you to decide if that's true or not. This is in Australia, actually, quite some time ago now, and I've no idea who said it. It's one of those surveys you get after that. I know you're going to get a survey on this one, but you know, surveys are not often you get the name of the person who responds. So this wonderful quote came somewhere, and I have to keep telling people it's a great quote, and it didn't come from my mother, and that is not a picture of my mother. In the early days of my presentation, I used a picture of my mother, and she told me off quite severely. And you do what your mother tells you to do. So I've replaced her with a surrogate mother who looked quite shocked about that possible statement. At work, a good laugh not only reduces tension and relieves stress, but it also helps to increase team bonding and boost morale. It's a quote from a guy called Andrew Filev. Andrew, he founded Reich, which is one of a number of project technologies that you can acquire. I'm not recommending any one, but at the point of writing the book or talking about the idea of the book, Andrew Filev and I were in contact for some other work, and he loved the idea, and Reich helped sponsor the book, so that's why their name is on the cover, and that's it. You know, there's no other push, but Andrew did write the foreword inside the book, and this is one of the quotes. You know, he says, you know, at work, a good laugh not only reduces tension and relieves stress, but it also helps increase team bonding and boost morale. I totally believe that. I've seen it happen, and I'm going to share with you 2 or 3 stories towards the end of the presentation about where I have seen the true value of that. You know, if we get on with each other, it's such a better place. And again, at this particular moment, I don't know. I don't know if you've experienced it, but there's just a change in people's attitude. We all seem a little bit. It's strange. In some ways, we're more stressed, but we also seem a lot less stressed. We all seem to have a lot more time, and actually, the sociability, both when I do go out for my daily exercise and pass a few people, and also on the various work-related calls, the sociability I feel has actually increased, and it's a great thing. It really helps create that sort of connection, I believe. Alexander Geruf is another guy who wrote part of the book for me. He's a speaker from a company called Woohoo Inc., which is just brilliant. And he does international keynote speaking on happiness. That's his specialist theme, and he's great. But he makes the point that this is not soft, idealistic, naive, hippie thinking, well, that woody rubbish pie in the sky. It's not. It's real. And I'm going to share with you a couple of simple sort of pieces of research that have taken place over the years that prove that fact to be true, I believe. Here's an example, Dr. Seuss. I guess you all have come across Dr. Seuss. It's kind of almost a word from someone really qualified to talk about fun, because Dr. Seuss wrote The Cat in the Hat because he thought that the famous US Dick and Jane reading primers were insanely boring. That was the point. So kids in America at that point in time, they had these reading primers, these books that they had to learn to read, used in these books. And I'm sure if you've got children, you might even remember your own school days, but if you've got children right now, I know there was I can't remember it. There was a whole series of books in the UK, which was about a family with some brothers, sisters, and there was a dog as well called Floppy, I think, something like that. But at that point in America, the books had the words in them, the words that the children need to learn, but the stories, the Dick and Jane stories, were insanely boring as far as Dr. Seuss was concerned. And his view was, because kids weren't interested in the material, they weren't exactly compelled to use it repeatedly in their efforts to learn to read. So he wrote and created the mad world that became Dr. Seuss and The Cat in the Hat and all those great other books. They are weird, they are wacky, and the characters are just crazy, and the colouring is mad, and all those sort of things. But the Cat in the Hat was born, and what a smart guy, because kids found these new books engaging. Kids found these new books fun. They found them interesting, and they learnt faster as a result. It's kind of around it's a concept of gamification almost into the world of learning, and that is something that's huge at the moment as well. Here's an example of gamification. Another book I've written called Lazy Project Manager and the Project from Hell, and it's a case study. It's an exercise. The book itself gives you everything you need to do to run this exercise yourself. I am invited on many occasions to go into organizations to run it, and I've run it from project team level all the way up to actually board members of a major bank, for example. And it goes like this. It's built around a case study from a project that I was involved in trying to rescue, to bring back from the project from hell to the project from heaven. And it's a real project, therefore. And I would hasten to point out it wasn't a project that I turned into hell. I was actually sent in to try and rescue it. I had a couple of years in my career where I was doing project recovery, which is, incredibly challenging and satisfying to a degree, but quite hard work. I was given this one, and this project was so bad that I extracted a case study from it, and that is the essence. And what happens is you put the people who are attending the workshop or training session into groups, typically 6 to 8 people, something like that. And then you give them this timeline, and the timeline runs over a series of weeks, the start of the project to the end of the project to the point of failure. And then you challenge them. You say you have the one thing that project managers would always love to have, and that's a time machine. And you get to use the time machine just once and go back in time and make changes to the project. What would you change? And that's kind of the challenge. It's the cause and effect calculation from the teams, and they have to produce a presentation at the end, and they have to come up with a great team name. And the presentations have been amazing. Some people use PowerPoint, some people use Flipchart. I've had people role play. I've had a puppet show. I've had it as a fairy tale. And some of the craziest, I said I did it for some board member of a bank, and they were just amazing, because those guys live in a very serious world, but they just had this opportunity to have a lot of fun. And they did one of the best presentations I saw, including all walking backwards when the time machine was being enacted, as far as they were concerned. So, at all levels, we cherish the opportunity to have some fun, and it doesn't distract from the fact that we are learning as a result of that. And that's the value of sort of gamification in the world. Victor Borge, the comedian and musician, said the shortest distance between two people is laughter. Absolutely. If you can make someone laugh, if you can make them smile, you are totally connected. Doesn't matter how far apart you are. And that's happened today. I'm talking to you. I have no idea where you are in the UK. I'm based in Sandhurst in Berkshire, and you're all over the place. And in fact, we might not even be talking in real time. If you're listening to the recording of this, what is the distance between us? It's almost infinite in that case. But if I can make you laugh, if I can make you smile, if I can even put a little bit of a twinkle in your eye, etc., as I do this, or give you some kind of inspiration when you go back to your work, then we have connected, and we have connected well. The idea, and it's one of the other things I do, which is all around presentational skills, and is about offering up kind of 3 things, and it's about giving you insight, but it's also entertainment that's wrapped around that. Some of the graduate speakers do that. They can wrap entertainment around insight, so that actually the pill of insight is not too difficult to swallow, because it's just wrapped around this whole kind of this entertainment factor. And humor comes to bear in the most darkest moments. And this is what I think I've learned about this. Even in the current situation, as I said, I don't know how many people I've spoken to now on webinars. It's a large number, and I know the book itself has been given away in the thousands, and certainly you're going to get an opportunity to have the book at the end of this presentation. But humor can be kind of powerful. So here's a picture of a BA flight, and I was on a BA flight, happy days when I used to fly, and now we look at the sky, because we're on where I live. We're kind of on one of the sort of loops as the aircraft come into Heathrow, and now it's exciting to look up in the sky and see a plane. It's kind of like when I was a kid again. But This particular flight, I was flying back from Budapest. I've been speaking at a conference, and I was sitting in the emergency exit row. I tend to go for that because you get a little bit more leg room. And suddenly this announcement came out, which I've never heard before on a plane, which was that all of the cabin crew were to attend the flight deck immediately. Well, that's I've never heard that. That's everybody's sitting up at that point going, what's going on? Shortly after that, another announcement came from the captain saying that due to some concern over some sort of chemical leakage, the plane itself had been put into the emergency landing protocol, and we will be descending immediately into Heathrow. Well, that's obviously very concerning. Again, I don't think anybody on the plane had experienced that beforehand. But quickly, the dark humor came about, because at that point, the guy next to me in the emergency row said, well, hey, I used to sit here because of the leg room. And I said, well, that's why I sit here. And he goes, well, I'm now thinking it's a good place to be in these sort of situations, right next to the door. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Dark humor. As we descended into Heathrow, and if you've ever flown into Heathrow, then you'll know this. The other joke that came from the other side of the cabin was, well, this is one way to avoid the whole of that Heathrow stack, that thing you sit in for 20 minutes and gradually descend towards Heathrow when they're waiting for planes to land. Well, we flew straight in. We landed. We were immediately taken to another part of the airport. We were checked over externally, and then we were opened the doors and people came on board and checked internally. We were taken off to a holding area, had a quick medical check, and everybody was sent home. There was no problem with anybody as far as I'm aware. And I don't actually know what happened. You never find out these things. But the point is, even in the most stressful situations, humor suddenly comes to bear. Humor suddenly makes life a little bit better. And this is what there's a lot out there right now, isn't there? There's loads of humor around the whole situation. I did like this one about remote learning. Luke, you must learn the ways of the Force. I'm ready, Obi-Wan. Okay, let's see. You've got to log in. You want to go to the student portal, and you want to click on Jedi course. That's one. The other one I do like is, what is the most effective accelerator for digital transformation? Is it the CEO? Is it the CIO? Is it the CTO? Or is it COVID-19? And the answer is, of course, COVID-19, because we had no choice. Transformation is taking place at a speed nobody expected, but incredibly, it's being successful in many cases. So have fun. Success will follow. If you aren't having fun, you're doing it wrong. That was Richard Branson talking about it. So, you've got to build that in. And I'm going to say this probably a lot, is the fact that, appropriate fun, suitable fun, acceptable fun, not fun at the expense of other people, inclusive fun, culturally appropriate fun, gender appropriate fun, etc. Use your brains when it comes to this, use your intelligence when it comes to this. And if in doubt, don't do it. That's the advice. If you have any concerns, don't do it. But do try and build some fun into your groups. There's some wisdom of fun here. So this is, I love this character. This is Jeff Dunham. He's a ventriloquist, a really funny guy from America, I think. And this is one of his characters, Walter. Walter is miserable as anything. He's never happy about anything at all, always complaining. But what's really interesting, it takes less muscles to smile than it does to look miserable, supposedly. So why look miserable? It's more effort. I'm a lazy guy, as my title is, lazy project manager. So it's a lot easier to look happy than it is to look miserable. So why would you even start there? It also gives you the bounce back factor. Optimistic people, happy people. We all work on projects. They're challenging. They're difficult sometimes. We have good days. We have bad days. We have days that are more difficult than others, and they're days we wish we could forget. But by having that kind of general optimistic view, you bounce back from those sort of situations quickly. And if you've got that built into your project team, if you've got that general attitude built into your project team through the kind of work that you've done, the team building you've done, etc., then the whole team is going to bounce back or support you in bouncing back that much faster. There's a thing that says that studies have shown that happy people help other people more. So if you're a happy person, you're more likely to help someone else. And I guess it's not really surprising, but happy people help other happy people even more than that. So if I'm happy and you're happy and we have a problem, you have a problem, we're going to help each other and we're going to bounce back and we're going to get over that problem. We're going to move on. It certainly helps you work better with your team is, I think. It helps you become far more productive. And it's not, there's some views of perhaps on negativity on this, that if you're constantly having fun and looking happy, you can't be doing any serious work. And I don't believe that at all. It doesn't mean it's constantly slapstick. It doesn't mean you're constantly rushing around the office and dressed up in crazy clothes or something like that, or whatever. It means sensible and appropriate at all times. But that general spirit of teams that have that kind of confidence, of optimism, that they engage with each other, they share a joke, they share a smile, they care about each other, it does definitely make for, I think, a more productive team. And it makes you popular. It's infectious to others in a good way, I have to say at this point in time. That didn't used to say that. It just said infectious to others. Now it says in a good way, obviously because of the current situation. But it's true. If your popularity, if you are very positive, very open, very engaging with other people, it makes you very popular. I worked with a project manager many years ago, but their approach was when they came in to work in the morning, no matter what else they had on for the rest of the day, and it could be the steering meeting from hell or whatever, it doesn't matter. But they would spend that first half hour just going around and saying hi to people, smiling, making small talk, checking on their project team, that kind of thing. And I know that guy was a very, very popular project manager as a result of that, because he really cared about the people. There was another survey that was done, or piece of research that was done. It's about novices, actually. So novices are the pre-fully ordained nun status. And what they did, this ran over a long period of time. But what they did was they got the novices to write down a short bio, a short kind of statement of how they felt about life prior to them being ordained as nuns. And what they found out many years later, at the age of 85, when they went back, that of the novices that wrote a cheerful bio, a positive statement about life, 90% of those were still alive at the age of 85. Whereas those that had a much less cheerful bio or view of life, etc., 54% of those were still alive at the age of 85. So interesting. It almost seems to suggest that happy, positive people live longer. So why not? Why not go that route? And there's a kind of universal truth that's proven in a Swedish study in 2002. It's called the facial response mechanism. That if you smile, then someone else will smile back at you. That's the general reaction. And I mentioned earlier on, I go for my sort of daily walk, and with all the correct protocols of social distancing, etc. And I pass a lot of people, but pretty much everybody is kind of smiling at each other when people step out of the way to let you pass, or vice versa. They say thank you, and there's a smile on their face. So, you can do this. Once you get to face to face with people, is an great exercise is you put them in pairs. And there's an A person and a B person in the pair. And the A person has to smile at the B person. And you just watch the response, and the B person will almost certainly smile back or respond in kind. It is that facial response mechanism. And if the A person looks miserable, then the B person would typically at least stop smiling and possibly even look miserable themselves in response to the other person. And the fun starts if you tell the A person to look really miserable and the B person has to smile, or vice versa. You get a lot of fun in a group when you try and do that, because it's really hard to do, actually, because it's inbuilt in us that we respond to others in like. So this facial response mechanism is a real thing. I want to test you now with some real bad jokes. Now, the reason I wrote the book, The Project Manager's Smile, and to be honest, I didn't actually write the book. I just came up with the idea, and a handful of very well there, semi enough in there to put together a book. And it's a mixture of those things, and it's great. Some terrible, terrible project management jokes right now. One of the things people say they like about the lazy project management, but at the time when I looked at it, that gets the biggest. Something nasty you smell, and an issue is something nasty you stand in. Quite a few people laugh at that one. If you haven't heard it before, you kind of get the analogy there. You know what we're talking about. And that one, 9 months to have a baby, it cannot be done in 1 month by impregnating 9 women. Obviously, big groan. It can be accurately estimated. Checks on projects that have completed, And I'm not even sure they could estimate it accurately even then, because they've lost track of many things that have actually really gone on. Bad project management, bad tracking, bad person who doesn't have to do it. Change is inevitable except from a vending machine. Yeah, that's a good one. That usually gets a laugh, but increasingly that's less true, isn't it? In the right money, that is a joke of history. And if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Well, it'll take you somewhere. I'm not sure it'll take you where you want to go, but it'll certainly take you somewhere. Let me share with you the value of fun is proven, guys. I hope you know this. There is an International Project Management Day, and it started by a friend of mine, Frank Saladis, many years ago. And increasingly, we all celebrate the value of project management. It's kind of a well done, congratulatory type event. But it's not the most important day of the year, I don't think, for project managers. I think the day in September, which is Speak Like a Pirate Day, is the important one. I came across this quite some time ago. I was leading a PMO inside a big organization, and I think I had just over 100 project managers working on 17 countries in Europe at that time. The PMO was just European-based and eventually went global. But to begin with, it was European-based. And the first year I came across this Speak Like a Pirate Day, I thought, this is fun. I like pirates. Everybody seems to like pirates. Why not? And so I celebrated this with my PMO team, and we had a little laughs. We were doing real work. We were just chatting about stuff. But there are like pirate translators you can get online. You can go and search for them. There are many, and now you can translate them into many languages as well. And we had a lot of fun that first year. So the second year, I thought, I'm going to extend this, because my project managers that worked for the PMO, I mean, they were everywhere, and we never got them all together in one place. I'd met most of them by that point, but I couldn't physically get them all in one place. Nobody would ever sanction that budget to make that happen. So what we did the second year was we got everybody an eye patch and an inflatable parrot, and we said, we are going to celebrate Speak Like a Pirate Day. And we had a lot of fun once I kind of explained it to people. And we did. On that day, we spoke like pirates. We used pirate translators to convert emails and everything else into pirate speak. We had a lot of fun. And it was a very engaging activity. It connected people for one day. As I said, we were doing real work. We were having real correspondence about real projects, real clients, etc. The one tip on this is that one of our German colleagues, one of our German project managers, was very deep into this, and suddenly he wanted to ask his manager some advice, and he forwarded this email onto his manager. Now, pirate speak in German is a thing to behold. I mean, their words are long enough anyway, let alone applying pirate language to it. The whole Johnny Depp Yar type stuff. Well, he did this. He forwarded it to his manager, and his manager, of course, naturally wanted to know what the hell was going on, and that took some explaining. So make sure when you do things like this that the right people are included, and to prepare people that this is happening. But we did have a lot of fun. The other thing that we did, because one of the concerns was this is a virtual community effectively, but whilst they were working on individual projects, they also needed to rely on each other, because that number of project managers is a lot of it's a wealth of experience that they really need to connect and share with. And so one of the other things we did fun-wise was we had a thing called It's Friday. And on Friday, it was the day that was encouraged for project managers around Europe to share the jokes, the humor, the Dilbert cartoons, the YouTube videos, whatever. As I said before, the appropriate, suitable jokes, the humor that was appropriate to situations, etc. And we did on Fridays. Different weeks, different people sent out jokes or stories or funny things that happened on their project, and it was great. And it was another powerful way of connecting people. We go back to the Victor Borge statement. The closest you can possibly be to someone is to make them smile. And that was kind of working. Now, I totally accept that maybe on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, they just didn't copy me on all the good jokes. But on Friday, it was known as It's Friday. It was a given thing that we would do this, and we had a lot of fun with it. And the last story I want to share is, I worked on a project that was a terrible, terrible project. It wasn't quite the project from hell, but it was pretty close. And I was responsible for this one. And we'd reached a point where, and I hope you've never experienced it, but it's a point in time where the project was making no real progress. All we were doing was burning time, resources, money, but we weren't actually making any progress. And everybody kind of hated everybody else and blamed everybody else. It was a terrible state to be in. And having tried many things, I decided to get quite radical, and I took my core team I booked a meeting room at our local hotel. I took my core team there. We spent the morning. I brought in a third party kind of facilitator, and he was very good. And we did a lot of blue sky thinking and brainstorming and mood boarding and all those wonderful things. And then she left, and at lunchtime I was sitting there and I realized that everybody still hated everybody else, and really I had no idea what on earth we were going to do in the afternoon. And in a moment of, well, you can describe it as desperation or inspiration. When we went back in the room in the afternoon, I just stood up in front of the people, it was about 10 people, and I said, right, I'm going to solve every single problem on this project right now. And 10 people looked at me, and I walked out and I closed the door, and in a very loud voice, I pretended to be my manager firing me. I gave it a minute or two. I walked back into the room, and you know what? Most people got the joke. A couple of people looked disappointed I was still employed, but most people got the joke. And really, it was that desperately inspired piece of humor that broke the ice in the room, broke the tension, and it was a turning point. And I'm not going to kid you and say that we magically brought the project back on track. We really didn't. We delivered massively under scope, massively late, and massively over budget. But we delivered something which, prior to that, I wasn't convinced we were. I thought this project was going to come to a halt. And so humor done the right way can be one of the most powerful things, I think, in projects, in project teams, and in business and life in general. There's some great stuff going on right now. This one, I saw this one from the Lego team. I mean, they were obviously having a bit of a fun engagement. They were doing it in fancy dress. We're not sure you want to do that. You can do it, of course, if you have the right team, but they're obviously thinking about the fact we need to engage our people. And this is a great way of doing it because, there's a visualization here. There's a fun aspect here. My partner, Juliet, she's organized with her work. She's been in remote working for nearly a month now. The whole company has moved rapidly into a remote-based working setup. And, she looks after the leadership of that organization. And, there's still lots of, work-related meetings going on. But she realized that, the thing that was missing was the other stuff, the stuff that happens at lunchtime, by the coffee machine, by the water cooler, after work down the pub. And so she's now leading a weekly sort of coffee morning, and people are just invited to come along. It's not about work. It's it's an open conversation. Everybody's got a cake and a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something, and they just spend an hour socially engaging with each other, which is something that's kind of really quite important and something that can be missing when you're doing this kind of virtual connection and virtual working, stuff that you don't plan when you're in office, but just happens. And so there's a lot of great ideas out there, I think. So that kind of brings me towards the end of the actual presentation part of this. The free ebook, you can access it through this webinar. If you look at the handouts, you can see two things there. There's the book and there's my flyer. Please feel free to download both. So what I'd love you to do, hopefully you'll enjoy the book. Instead, the book is a mixture of things. It's a mixture of, there are some jokes, there are some stories in there, short stories from a number of people who have contributed to the book. There are some larger stories from some pretty well-known names out in the project management world. And on top of that, there's a couple of, I didn't read it, real case studies around PMOs that have embedded fun and sort of things that they've done. So I think there's a lot there to inspire you and stimulate you and give you some thoughts about the things you might want to do. And I think a lot of it can actually transcribe into the kind of remote world as well. So the view of the book is that, I hope you enjoyed the book and I hope you gained some insight, some entertainment, some value from it. I encourage you to share the book if you want. You can share it with one person, you can share it with 1,000 people. I really don't mind. Let's spread the smile out there. Let's pass this through the project management community worldwide. So I said, I've lost track how many copies of the book have been shipped out. I personally have actually shipped out about 5,000 copies to people, but every time with the promise and offer to, well, please share it with everybody you know. And that's great. We just do that. And thirdly, connect to me on LinkedIn. It's my primary area of focus of sociability, connections, all that kind of networking. So, if you want to, then send me an invitation. I will gladly accept it. And I hope, as I said, you get some value from the book. Before we move across back to Robert and some questions, hopefully, it's a little bit of information about me. The latest book I've written, so the Lazy Project Manager came out 10 years or just over 10 years ago, and it was quite radical at the time. It was quite challenging. It was very different. It was a book of fun. It was a book of errors and mistakes and lessons learned. It was a book that it was like nothing else when it came out, because at that point every single book on project management was a book of theoretical perfection and stunningly boring for the most part as well, if I'm honest. And there's a lady there, it's Susie Palmer-True. She heads up change transformation PMO inside the Open University, and we met in Athens at a conference, and we were just talking about some stuff, and she suddenly, she challenged me. She goes, well, a lot of that is complete rubbish. We've made project management so complicated. And I kind of agreed with that. And so we agreed to write a book, which, it's short, it's full of swear words, I'll warn you. We did get a lot off our chest. There's a lot of things that make us very angry about project management. And then the rest of the book is about what we think is really, really important. I mean, there's 7 cracking ideas at the heart of what it means to be a change agent. And it's aimed at project managers. It's aimed at people who deliver projects as usual. This is something I describe as this middle point. There's business as usual inside an organization. There are projects as projects. These are special, big, scary, hairy, complex things that need a full-time project manager. But in the middle, there's an increasing community of people delivering change as part of their day-to-day job. And I describe those as projects as usual. So it's aimed at that. So it is a bit tongue-in-cheek. And Susie is, she's the future of project management. People like her because she's young, she's enthusiastic, she's very challenging, she doesn't take any prisoners, and she's from the north of England and swears like a trooper. But apart from that, she's a really nice lady. The last thing is the PM Tribe. So it's something else that I've started with in 5 other people out there in the PM world. People like Elizabeth Harron, Rick Morris, Colin D. Ellis, John Stenbeck, and Alana Hill. Some of those people you may well know, and it's a virtual community. We hope actually we are opportune in our timing, because it is a remote community. You can go find us at thepmtribe.com, and everybody's welcome. And we basically work by having each of the faculty leads, the 6 of us, we have a 1-hour weekly call where we share some knowledge and we have an open discussion, and we do that every week. And so therefore week by week there's so many hours of live and recorded material that's stored away, and we hope to be led by that community, and it's for project managers, it's for process managers, it's for people managers. The P stands for anything, really. So it's a very inclusive community. And at that point I will stop. Robert, or do we have some questions?
Yes, firstly, thank you, Peter. There's been over 300 people on this webinar, so you've definitely brought the community together to hopefully make them laugh and share some good information. So thank you for doing that. Definitely encourage some questions from the people in the webinar, but we've got some to start off with. Someone's asked, as a manager, how could I introduce fun into the workplace but ensure I get the balance correct?
Yeah, you've got to do it gently. I remember years ago, I worked when I used to work for KPMG, and I was part of the SAP community inside KPMG. And I remember, and it is language, and we do tease the Germans, and I know some great Germans with great sense of humor, but we were sent an invitation that there was going to be a social event, and at 6 p.m. we will be having fun. And it really was worded that way. Yeah, you can't do it like that. But I think as a manager, you can introduce fun, to begin with, by your own attitude to start with, and I think you can introduce fun perhaps outside of work, with a team gathering, team meeting, bowling, drinks, whatever it is, and putting a little bit of fun spin on it. So maybe you're not going crazy in the office, and as I said, putting on fancy dress and cracking jokes on an hourly basis, or faster than that even. I think as a manager, you can demonstrate the way by having that injected into the various meetings and interactions you have. And I think you can start having some fun, perhaps outside the working day to begin with, and then gradually bring that into the working day as well.
Perfect, thank you. A similar question from Cole and Glenn. I'll try and combine them, but how do you bring in humour without crossing people's sensitivity boundaries, and ensure that you get the balance right there as well?
Yeah, I mean, just you think about it, and I've made mistakes, I've got it wrong, and you have to think about cultures, etc. So one of the things I talk about in my Lazy Project Manager keynote I joke about, breathing normally on a flight, but it's all about flying. And, I talk about a good flight, and a good flight is when the flight's on time, my luggage is on board, I'm not sitting in the middle seat, and I'm not sitting in the middle seat between two sumo wrestlers with body odor. Now, that's not aimed at being offensive to anybody, but we've all kind of experienced that perhaps of some uncomfortable flights with people around us. But when I went to America and we went through the material before I delivered the presentation, I was told, well, you can't use that. We'd offend people. So you need to change that. So you have to have an open mind to it. And I think you have to think about it. And as I said, I think towards the beginning of the presentation, if you have any doubts, pull it out. Don't do it. Or I think the other way to do it is you have a multicultural team, for example, you can pre-test humor on an individual level. Because if I came to you, Robert, and let's say I was some crazy American, say, well, I'm going to crack this joke, and would this work with your audience? Hopefully, you wouldn't be personally offended. You go, well, no, Peter, I don't think that would go down very well. So I think you can test things out, but just have a mind that it has to be appropriate. And if you have any real concerns, don't do it. Think of something else.
Yeah, that's good advice. If in doubt, don't do it. Perhaps bounce it off someone before trying. Jessica has enjoyed today's webinar, I hope, because she said, do you host podcasts? If not, why?
I did podcasts for many years. I did podcasts for nearly 8 years, and I stopped them about a year and a half ago. Purely for the having to do, can you fit everything in? So no, I don't do podcasts anymore. I go on a number of people's podcasts, and within the PM Tribe, we intend to in the future to actually start a PM Tribe podcast and carry, if you like, carry the burden of doing it between all 6 of the faculty leads on the PM Tribe. So I kind of enjoyed it, but I kind of ran out of time and ideas, etc. after 8 years. But you can go on to, I think they're still there. You can go onto YouTube, not YouTube, you go onto iTunes. You should be able to find the Lazy Project Manager podcast. I don't know if you can still access it or not, but I haven't taken anything down, so it's a matter of whether it's still live. But I haven't checked for a long time.
Oh, perfect. And people can go to your pmtribe.com to kind of have conversations weekly as well, you mentioned.
Yeah, so what we do is, every day of the week, one of us is, well, apart from one of us is actually hosting a call at different times. Their calls are all recorded. My theme is around working smarter, because that's kind of my productivity is my thing, being productively lazy. So mine is on a Tuesday, and if anybody wants to join, you can join. It is a pay for service, but it's like $99 for lifetime access. It's very low, and there's a 30-day free trial anyway. We really want to give people value. It's about building a big community of people to exchange ideas, and hopefully at some point in the future it's less about us, the faculty lead, and it's more about the members. That's the idea. But anybody can come in for 30 days and listen to all the recordings and attend the live sessions, and we hope that's going to offer up value to people.
Perfect, thank you. Vicky's asked, what would you consider a project from hell, and what would be your first step to improve it?
Well, a project from hell, the most miserable experience I had on a project was where it was a government project. It was where everything had to be repeated in 2 locations in England and Scotland. It's where everything was done in some dark bunker, so every meeting could be then shared back the other way via conferencing or virtual conferencing. That just made it sad and depressing, because I never saw daylight. What made it really the project from hell is there was clearly no real appetite to be successful. It was about the culture of the organization, and no matter what I did, in that case, no matter what I did made any difference at all. This project was on a trajectory that was never going to change. I mean, we got there in the end, but when I started on the project, I was told, in my view, this was a 6-month project. And I was clearly told by the sponsors, well, no, this is 2 years. Or why is it 2 years? And they gradually explained to me the processes that they would go through and the delays that there would be and the indecision and all the rest of it. And yes, I didn't actually finish that project. Someone else took over for me because I ended up managing the project managers themselves. I got promoted at that point. But yeah, it did take me 2 years. in that one, I have no idea what I could have done about it, really. I was incredibly frustrated. In the end, it was just a matter of, well, get on with it. And fortunately, I didn't run just one project. I ran 3 or 4 at that time, and I enjoyed the other ones because they had a much more open spirit and an opportunity for some fun, and there was a real appetite to actually succeed as quickly as possible.
Perfect. Great advice. Got a question here from Connor. He said, as a junior project manager, how can he introduce fun but still gain respect from the more senior, experienced colleagues and stakeholders, etc.?
React carefully, and don't try and introduce fun upwards, introduce fun downwards. So even as a junior project manager, you interact and work with people, then just bring a smile. I mean, fun doesn't have to be crazy slapstick, wearing a clown's outfit. Fun can just be bringing some cookies in, or biscuits in, or whatever. When I ran PMOs, one of the things we always did was we used to have PMO payday. And on payday, the PMO would fund, things to eat, cakes, biscuits, whatever is in the various offices, and that's fun. That's bringing a bit of fun in, and we got known, etc. And we used to showcase each member of the PMO and kind of what they were up to as part of that activity. So I think as a junior one, just don't burst into your manager's office and start cracking jokes and anything like that, but start downwards. And I think the other thing I tell people is, if you can come across an instance in your project where fun has helped positively and there is a good outcome, then you can share that fun, if you like, with your manager, with senior members of the organization, going, hey, look, this is what happened. This is this is how we used humor or fun, or this is the value of that team spirit. And look, we had a great result. Because then you're not cracking a joke or trying to embed fun upwards. So you're just showcasing something that has already been successful.
Perfect. Great advice. Thank you. So probably quite relevant at the moment. How do you introduce fun when everyone's working remotely? It's sometimes hard to build the banter, if you like, without that.
Well, that's true.
Face.
But I showed the case stuff. I talked about Juliet running the coffee mornings, and that the Lego thing. That's kind of a little bit out there fun, if you like. You can ask, you can theme meetings, etc. One of the things I've done with virtual groups, because I've been doing this kind of virtual stuff for so long. But if you're working around the world, what we used to do was a couple of things. One was the regular calls that we used to have, it wasn't me hosting them. We used to rotate around the world, that each major location would host the call. That does a couple of things. One, it makes people engaged. If they're not just passive recipients of whatever it is you're telling them, they take ownership. They have to run the meeting. I'd still send them some agenda items that we need to cover, but they always had a slot on the agenda to talk about anything else they wanted from a local point of view. So that was really good. And by moving around the world, that kind of connected. And the other thing is that we used to, as part of that, we also used to allow them to showcase something that was pertinent to their culture. So they might have, a celebratory day, a public holiday, a Saints Day, or big event, or something like that. And we would allow them to, grab 5 minutes at the end of the meeting and kind of showcase that and explain to us what it was all about. So, this was good stuff. It was insightful, it was interesting, it was educational, and it was fun. And those sort of things you can bring in without distracting from the rest of the, if you like, the serious work. I think you can definitely embed it gently into the ongoing conversations.
Perfect. Thank you. Someone said, so James has asked, a lot of what you've spoken about is aimed at project teams, but what would you suggest for customers / those who are receiving the change?
Yeah, again, this is very careful. You as a project manager must understand what sort of relationship you have with your client. You need to understand. You will have that judgment call about what level of humor you can bring into that kind of that situation. But no, I think there's a lot of it is very internally focused. How you share that externally, I think, will come only from experience and understanding what kind of relationship you have and what will be acceptable and not acceptable, and what situation. I've worked with some really good client teams, and we've had a lot of laughs, we've had a lot of fun. In fact, we've embedded a lot of things I've talked about into the joint working sessions that we'd have. But equally, I also knew that when we went up to the steering committee at the client, we're talking to the senior sponsors, etc., then it was a lot less of that involved. It was far more to the point and serious, and also it does depend on the culture of the organisation that you're working in. So again, you've got to be cautious. It doesn't mean you can't extend it, I don't think, into a certain level, but again, just yeah, ask yourself not twice, ask yourself 3 times as if this is the right thing to do and what the consequences are, because it can be very off-putting when it goes badly wrong. And the story I tell around this was a roadshow I had to do for an organisation, and I had to do as part of a team, and we were showcasing the project progress and where we were with it. And we had 3 locations. I had to do it in Edinburgh, Manchester, and London. We started in Edinburgh, and I kicked off I had a little joke about change. And it's not offensive or anything like that. It's a bit of a fun. It's a little bit slightly out there, but it's quite acceptable. I tested it on a few people. It was fine. I did it as my opening section in Edinburgh, and I got a lot of laughs. I did it in Manchester. I got a lot of laughs. I was feeling really confident in London. The London meeting was probably 3 times bigger than the other 2, because that's where the head offices were. And I cracked this joke, and there was nothing in the audience at all. And it totally threw me. It completely threw me. And I staggered my way through the actual proper presentation about project progress and plans, etc. after that, because it threw me off completely. And so, that was a lesson to me that sometimes it's kind of dangerous to lead with humor. Maybe it's not the right thing to do. Maybe it's more that you start off with the work, with the serious stuff, and if you see the opportunity, you inject some humor, but you don't go big. You don't go big on opening, because it can go badly wrong.
Noted. I think Lindsay's joining in with the laughters for today, and she said, "Speaking like a pirate day has less of an impact if you come from Bristol like me." So that's just
yeah, I'll be out there, yeah, definitely.
which is good to see. Someone's asked, how do you introduce fun to relieve project team members of their anxiety and encourage them to open up to seek assistance from fellow team members or support?
Oh, I think, can you use fun to do that? I don't know. I mean, I think if the team has the right attitude, I talked earlier on about the fact that happy people help other happy people, and they help everybody actually. So I think, again, if your team has got that kind of spirit, then that will be noted and someone will pick up on it. And again, you can get into the whole, character dynamics of a team, and certain people are those sort of nurturers and helpers. That's nothing wrong with understanding your team in that way. I think, having that attitude of not being a remote project manager in the sense of being unavailable, difficult to get hold of, is really good as well. So people don't feel they can't come to you, etc. But the other thing I talk in Lazy Project Manager, I talk about the fact that I have this dinosaur theory, and it's like the projects are thick at one end, thin in the middle, and thick again at the far end. You have to get into the whole Monty Python analogy to understand this. But in the middle of a project, my argument is that project managers shouldn't be going flat out 100% capacity, because projects are about people, and they need to have time to engage with their people and have that kind of connection. And if you're a project manager that's busy, then you're going to miss out on that. And so in that middle part of the project where it's about your project team, really, you should be proactively going around, like the project manager I talked about, going around talking to people, asking how they are, sharing a smile and a joke as appropriate, connecting with them on a personal level, thanking them for their help on the recent project activity, what went on at the weekend, how's the family, was it a good birthday party, that kind of stuff. Because then it gives you that opening where you can recognize when there are some challenges to individuals, particularly if you've got a very long project and people are connected to you and working for you for a long period of time. But then you have the ability to move into a very reactive mode quite quickly if there are major problems. So I'm not sure you can openly use fun in that sense, but I think by creating that general atmosphere and spirit of the team, these sort of things can be picked up, and hopefully there are no obvious barriers to that person being able to talk to you or being open to you talking to them if you see something going wrong.
Definitely, team spirit certainly helps, and as you say, hopefully opens people up. I think we've got a couple more questions, but perhaps we'll end on this one. Is there a danger that you are not taken seriously enough if you're a PM that smiles? How do you get the balance right?
Well, yeah, if you're a PM that has this manic look on your face of it's almost hysteria, then it's hard to get taken seriously. I think it's it's a matter of balance and appropriateness, etc. And people do jump to conclusions. This is a risk. Years ago, I turned up on site, I start a new project, and we had to install our software. And I walked on site with two very large tapes, magnetic tapes in those days. Yes, I'm that old. And the chair of the company, who was also the chair of the steering committee meeting, saw me. And it took me ages to overcome the fact that he could just thought I was some kind of techie. He didn't take me serious as a project manager based on that first impression. I think it's a matter of discipline and control of knowing that there is a right time and a wrong time to have that kind of smile on your face. Doesn't mean you have to look miserable. A right time and a wrong time to introduce humor, and a right and a wrong time to talk about the value of humor as well. It's just getting that balance right and you have to make a judgment call inside the situation. And again, go back to it. Be careful. First impressions do count. So if you are seen as a manically, hysterically happy person, then that might disturb anybody, really, I think.
That's great. And I think potentially on that note, looking at the time, there's been a lot of positive comments from everyone saying it's been a great session. They'd like to engage with you after the event. As I say, some people are looking for webcasts, etc. And I definitely encourage people to connect with you on LinkedIn. Is that probably the best way?
That's the best way, or go to the websites you can see on the screen there. Either of those, you can get hold of me. And yes, I mean, you can message me through lazyprojectmanagers.com, and I'll get straight back to you.
Perfect. Okay then, Peter. Well, thank you for giving that presentation and also taking the time to answer the questions. There's now a lot of comments coming through saying thank you. I'd also like to extend my thanks to everyone who's attended today, and I hope everyone keeps well. Definitely have a look out for future APM webinars on the APM events page. We're trying to run 2 or 3 a week, a variety of different topics. So we hope to see you at future webinars. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. Stay safe. Bye.